Hey, hi, sovereigns. I am so excited to bring you this final episode of the year. 6 old school trends in business that still work in 2024 and beyond. And it's the last podcast episode of the year, last of season 3, before I take a month off and just rest and nurture my creative juices. This is my quiet time of the year. And I'm going to be honestly focusing on what I want my business to look and feel like in the next year. I feel ready for a massive up level. And, I've committed to a specific strategy over the last 3 years, and I've put all of myself behind it. I've put all the energy that I've got behind it. And I've looked at what has worked and what hasn't worked. And for the parts of the strategy that I felt haven't worked or no longer work for me because they no longer give me the pleasure that they used to, um, I'm wanting to try something new. I'm ready to try some new things. And at this point in history, economically speaking, I see a lot of people actually evaluating their strategies right now and preparing to make big shifts in how they run their businesses in 2024 and beyond. And partially that has to do with, macroeconomic trends, how people are buying and what people are buying. I see that happening as people recognize how AI has been affecting the online space and affecting how we do business, changing it. I see that also with the growing political consciousness around money and how we are together, right? How we relate to one another. Um, and also with the recognition of how the coaching industry has harmed people through overcharging, underdelivering, spiritual gaslighting, etc. What I want to say with all that is that I want you to prepare for business not as usual. Um, I've also seen a lot of people talk about how they feel burnt out on social media. I see a lot of people a lot more savvy about when and how they're being sold to. You can't just drop a link. You can't just direct people to a sales page and just like expect them to do everything on their own. People's lives look very different than they did 3 years ago. And I believe people want a high touch, high value, human centered experience through the entire marketing and sales process. They want to feel spoken to, they want to feel seen, they want to be heard. And that's always been the case. But I think even more now, I'll be willing to say. And even though people being more savvy means that um, people are maybe more critical about sort of what they invest their money in, or more discerning, and maybe that means that they buy less overall. This is actually a good sign. It is a good sign that people are more sovereign, more discerning with how they use their dollars, and less likely to be manipulated, frankly, by an online entrepreneur, guru, or, influencer, right? Or even the government for that matter, right? If you want free thinkers in your audience, right? You want free thinkers in your audience, period. Even if that makes them less likely to buy from you, right? So it's not about convincing, it's just really about like standing in your passion, really embodying that passion, your conviction for what you have and how you can change people's lives. So the people who buy from you are going to be making more aligned decisions, right? When you have free thinkers in your space, right? But these free thinkers are going to be making more aligned decisions, which makes ultimately your job more pleasurable, because you're going to be working with people who are ready to receive and integrate the transformation you're delivering, because they're going to be really ready. They're going to be there because you're going to communicate to them where they need to be, and they're going to be self-knowledgeable enough to know that that's exactly where they are. So what I want to share with you in today's podcast are the 6 things that I believe you'll need to stay viable in business, to have a thriving business in 2024 and beyond. Basically, this is like old school trends in business that will always work, right? These are the sort of the soft strategies that will always work. So the first is you have to be good at marketing and sales. And to preface, I want to preface by saying what I consider marketing and sales is different from what you hear out there. In the business coaching world, I think that a lot of marketing and sales is really just about truth and transparency, just about being real, cutting through the bullshit, just telling people exactly what it is. I feel like that makes people feel safer, even though that's not what some people may want to hear. I think it's easy to manipulate people into like, oh, I did it this way and you can do it too. And that's not true. Not everybody gets the same results, right? And so be real about what you're selling, right? Like people like to do like, oh yeah, money activation, boom, right? It's a lifelong process. And yes, can you collapse time and move forward really quickly in your relationship with money? Yes, you can. Some people can, and some people need more time to get there, right? So stick with truth and transparency, because people can feel when you're selling from passion versus when you're selling to make a buck. And I talked about this on a live that I did in Facebook with my colleague Maximilian Webster, where we talked about like when you're selling from a place of survival, when you're just like, oh my God, I need to just make my rent, let me just sell some things, people can fucking feel that shit. Versus when you're selling from passion, when you're like, I really believe in this and I am detached from the outcome. Sure. Will it make me some money? Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is this. This is why you need this thing, right? This is why this is so important, right? Bringing your message that way and orienting to that, embodying that. So I want you to think of marketing as sharing, and I want you to think of sales as inviting. So when I talk about getting good at marketing and sales, it means refining your messaging so that it addresses the problem and speaks the language of the people who are ready to engage in the solution. You have to be good at storytelling and speaking your consumer's language. Now, this is the hardest part for me. I'll admit it. I find it really hard to get in other people's heads. In their bodies, I can get in their bodies immediately, but I have a really hard time getting in their heads. And whether that's an HD thing or whatever, I don't know. But using other people's language is very hard because I'm just so in my own language. I've had to work so hard to find my own voice. That's all I got. You know what I mean? But it also means like marketing and sales also means letting people know consistently and often the value you offer to them and what changes they can expect in their life by working with you. So letting people know what it is you have to offer, why it's important, why you're the person to teach it to them, what they can expect from you, who it's for, who it's not for, right? Clarity, truth, and transparency right there. And when you get on a sales call, and I've shared this before in another training, you want to be holding space for a person's whole humanity as you help them make a choice about whether your offer is a right fit for them or not manipulating your own energy to be more likable and attractive, and not manipulating them into making a decision. All right. So number two, the second old school trend, you actually have to be good at what you do. Okay. I need to say this. This involves several facets. First, if you're only amazing at sales and marketing and also don't serve the fuck out of your people when they actually come into your containers, the word will get out and your sales will dwindle over time. Why? Because, yeah, people will just talk about it to other people. Second, any good business relies on content creation. You have to know your shit backwards and forwards in order to really deepen your thought leadership. You really have to know your craft deeply, because there's a lot of people who address things on the surface. And that's a little bit of what I believe is dying, is that people are ready for a deeper conversation. So going into the depth of your work, getting into the deeper layers is going to serve you, right? Thought leadership makes you stand out above the other people posting generic content that can be, you know, generated by, you know, AI that doesn't sound like you, for example, or somebody else's stuff, right? Your thought leadership is your moneymaker. It communicates your work through your particular lens, through your particular experience, which cannot be replicated, right? That is your voice. And your thought leadership holds your core message, your deepest values, which will help people decide whether or not they want to align with you. And your thought leadership will send people away. People will decide you're not for them. It's important that you do that as much as you pull people in. Your job is to push people away, right? The people who are not aligned, you want to help them make a decision by you standing in your thought leadership. And so, more important though, right? Here's the energetic piece on this. You have to be passionate about what you do and why you do it, right? And so that ties into, you have to embody what you sell. So that's number 3. Embodying what you sell is number 3. So you have to walk the talk and be the outcome that people are investing in. This is about congruency, and like being out of congruency will cost you. This is about congruency, thought leadership, holding your power, none of which can be underestimated. We are like hungry for leaders. We are hungry for people, for leaders who are, right, truthful, transparent, clear, human, fully human. And embodying what you sell doesn't mean you can't guide people through results you haven't fully gotten yet, right? Because when I think about manifestation can be tricky. Sometimes you can embody things that that haven't yet materialized in your field, right? You can be holding the vision and you know it's going to happen, but it hasn't landed yet, right? It hasn't actually materialized in the 3D yet, right? So for example, sometimes you can embody a healthy relationship. I know this is true for me, right? I have the relationship skills. I embody the skills required to have a healthy partnership, but I don't have a partner, right? So I can be a relationship coach, right? Even though I don't have, you know, the marriage or the relationships or whatever, right? I have lots of different relationships where I use those skills and where it really does serve me. But if, you know, in a like an intimate relationship coach, I don't have like the result, you know what I mean? So in the same way, you can embody a thriving business by having all the systems in place and being fully behind it energetically, but it hasn't quite hit yet, right? It hasn't quite landed yet or materialized. And this is where the embodiment of your audacious beliefs is so important. You have to start somewhere, right? Like people, like businesses are not like, they don't just happen overnight. It takes time. And that's where the embodiment of your future self is so critical. That version, embodying the version of yourself that gets you there, right? There's the version of you that got you here. Awesome. We want to honor that. And then there's embodying the version that gets you to that next level. So number 4, you have to develop business structures that facilitate the influx of money. So I hope you already know that the trend of energetics without a solid strategy to match it is why so many people's businesses are just dying, right? All the people who were talking about feminine energetics and flow are just like getting full-time jobs. So you need a strategy or strategies, and you need to be consistent at implementing it. You got to get really, really good at it. You need to practice, practice, practice until that shit is like well lubricated and like basically running itself. It just comes naturally to you. You embody the strategy, basically, right? And like I said earlier, sometimes those strategies need to change, and you'll know intuitively by how much or how little pleasure it's giving you, right? There are some aspects of my business right now that are just like, yeah, I used to love this part. And now I'm kind of like, I'm kind of feeling like, yeah, I don't really, it doesn't jazz me up. And so when you get that, you shift it. You shift, okay, well, what would feel pleasure? What would feel so juicy? What can I get behind, right? What can I put my energy behind? So if it no longer feels pleasurable, maybe it's time to change it. Okay, number 5. Your business needs to be tied to a bigger collective vision. Your business needs to be tied to sociopolitical values. Gone are the days, forget the BS about remaining neutral or being performative about your politics. It isn't possible to be neutral when things are so polarized, when there is such egregious shit happening in the world, inhumane, right? I'm not saying you need to take a side, because I do not believe in taking sides. I am a believer in holding multiple perspectives, and I will always take the side of humanity and unity, right? A little bit of a twisty twist of words there. So yeah, like my quote unquote side will always be humanity, will always be holding all of the humanity in sort of what we're looking at. And so when you remain neutral, that's really just you protecting yourself from the risk of upsetting people, and the responsibility of your leadership. Leadership is a responsibility, right? It does signify like a holding of something, right? A holding of your power. Holding your power takes responsibility, because you're having to, right, like manage it and take up space with it and be responsible with it. Yeah, it is responsibility all the way. And you know that this whole thing about being strategically neutral about political and social issues is over. If you're doing that now, stop it. Because as people's consciousness deepens, you'll lose credibility by the minute, right? You'll lose credibility. All right. So number 6, you have to have intimacy skills. Okay. This is the most important one, which is why I left it for last. And I want to say that my entire business has been created from relationships that I've nurtured since I started my private practice 13 years ago. When I decided to become an entrepreneur and shut down my private practice and stop calling myself a therapist and becoming a coach and mentor and guide, it's all about relationships, right? Online relationships during the pandemic. I have business partners that I've never met in real life, so the reason why I've been able to participate in summits, get invited on tons of podcasts, and become an affiliate for incredibly dope offers and big influencers is because of real long-lasting connections I've made with people over the years. It's because I've had the skills. I've had the skills, and part of the skills are believing that I belonged, that I could reach out to, let's say, somebody who was famous, who was a big influencer, and say, I trust that I'm worthy enough to be talking to you and to feel like we're equals. You know what I mean? Even though there are aspects of our lives that might not be equal, I consider myself an equal, right? I believe in my own power, right? So that's part of the intimacy skills, is really believing that you're worthy and that you belong. But it's also about like when you fuck up, which I do all the time. I say things, or I miss moments, or I maybe I'm inconsiderate sometimes, then you have to have the intimacy skills to repair and to just show up and be humble and say, yeah, like I totally missed the mark there, or what could I have done differently, or how can I make you feel, or yeah, what can I do to make you feel like this is healed, like this is complete. Um yeah, so I've invested time in my own sort of introspection, in my intimacy skills. I've practiced with friends, and I've invested money and emotional energy in developing bonds with people that I share an affinity with. Um, yeah, and in order for any business to thrive, you must people well and create relationships based on reciprocity, not like what you can get out of them. And in the past, I've like done exchanges with people. Um, I've been generous with people. I've given away things for free when I've felt capacitated to do so. When I haven't felt capacitated, I've said, look, I can't bring down the price. Right? I've been really honest with people about like when I can and can, when I don't have wiggle room, when I do have wiggle room, I can give more. And I'm not an extrovert. I'm not an extrovert. So please don't use the excuse that you can't people well because you're an introvert. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes we have neurodiversity or autism that makes peopling harder. And I think that if you let people know that ahead of time and just kind of like give them a little background, you can people well. You can people well. So what I predict is going to happen in 2024 is that relationships and supporting each other's businesses is going to become much more important than ever. We're going to shift even harder from this individual approach, this solopreneurship thing, into a more collective one. We're really dismantling, I think, the idea of that one person at the top who's making a shit ton of money. We are thinking more about how we can leverage our relationships so that all of us rise, not just one person, right? So those are the 6 trends that I feel are going to be really that are going to last, be like that are going to take you through 2024, give you success and last beyond that as well. Just good old school trends. So it's basically being good at marketing and sales, being good at what you do, embodying what you sell, develop business structure that facilitate the influx of money, expressing your social political values freely and honestly, and having intimacy skills. So, like I said, technology is changing, our awareness and consciousness is shifting, and people are getting more and more sophisticated. And some other things that I didn't mention or didn't include in the 6 trends are resilience. My work, when I talk about nervous system capacitation, I'm really talking about resilience. Your business has to be as resilient as you are, and your business is in fact as resilient as you are. When you collapse, your business collapses, right? So you have to calibrate your system and make sure that you continue to be able to like back things with your energy, right? With your life force. That's the extension of your business. So creating strong and steady routines versus focusing on how your business looks like on the outside, vanity metrics, things like that. Just strong and steady routines and roots. So I'm talking about the practices that support your whole human, right? Body, mind, and spirit. Just this week, for example, I felt my system got blown out by some interactions I was having with my children and issues that my children were having at school. And I needed to take a day to rest. I was feeling very angry. I was feeling dysregulated. And I was like, all right, I need to take a step back. I need to put on my baggiest sweatpants and stay really still. I need to be still and I need to be quiet and I need to, like, I saw clients that day, but it was very like low key work. I didn't do like really big stuff. I didn't go online very much. So it's like you have to know what you need. The best question you can ask yourself is, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? And that question alone will guide every step of your day and will help you capacitate and take care of your mind, your body, and your spirit in your business. Also, be generous. So people want to see real value in advance of jumping into your container, right? Gone are the days where you like, you hold back the secret and you're like, well, if behind this paywall is this like awesome thing that I'm not going to tell you about yet. You're just going to have to trust me on it. And I've had a tendency to do that, and that's why I'm emphasizing it now. So I want you to find a way to share value that can be immediately applied so that clients can experience a small win, right? You want them to have an experience, to have like a tangible result that is like to get a taste, right? And that's going to leave them wanting more, right? So the tough part of all of what I just shared is that you can have all of the things I just mentioned in your business, and your business may still be slower. And this is where I want to remind you again that macroeconomic factors are absolutely real. And that can mean inflation, that can mean recession. Uh, yeah, all of those things are going to affect the way people buy and what people buy. So if your business is slower, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean that the strategies aren't working and that you need to change them. It may just need it just may need to be slower, and you may need to get a part-time job to supplement your salary and still be able to like show up for your business, right? Also, like, let me just say it again in case you're like not being kind to yourself. The astrology has been really fuck hard. Okay. People have been going through some shit that's felt increasingly chaotic. I thought last year was hard, and it was. 2023 has been a different kind of hard. And it has felt more chaotic. And this will slow down your business just because you have to rest more and practice deeper self-care. Sometimes that will mean getting off social media or literally just lying the fuck down and not creating one day. Yeah, so I just want to like normalize that. I want to normalize that because so many people have been talking to me about that behind the scenes. It's just like they're just going through some shit. And what I want to leave you with today, right, in light of all of what I just shared, is that I want to say from my deepest heart, and I'm feeling myself tearing up here, is that I don't ever want you to give up. Sometimes it's going to feel like you want to. And those are the moments where you want to take a step back and just come into yourself and just remember why you're doing this, why you even came into this, like your desire to be free, your desire for a better life, your desire for more. You get to want more and you get to have more. Remember your passion and your mission, right? Sometimes we need to take a step away in order to resource ourselves and then come back with even more power and conviction and just love. It really is love. So yeah, like don't give the fuck up. Don't give up. If it's worth it, like keep going and keep showing up regardless of what other things you need to do to make yourself feel safe and feel like you're backing yourself. Keep going. All right? Longevity and sustainability is the name of the game, my dear. All right. I love you so much. Have a beautiful rest of the year, and I'll see you in 2024.